I wonder how much this one is. Interesting. What's your pet policy? I need to reserve house in advance? Whew. Planning a trip and getting the lodging is so much work. I am so glad this is done. I have got my icy drink, I'm on my deck, and I am ready to tell you all the things I learned about lodging at the Grand Canyon. I'm going to go through the lodges, a little bit of places to stay outside of the lodges, and some camping. I also have 3 super important tips for you in this video to help you make the decision on where you want to stay. So I am hoping that this is going to save you hours of planning and get you going on the right direction for where you want to stay when you visit the South Rim of the Grand Canyon. So to start off, let's just talk about the layout of the South Rim. The South Rim Village, where all the lookouts are and most of the lodging, is a relatively small spot. It's 13 square miles, and they have a great shuttle system that goes throughout that village. If you're not staying in the main village, there is the blue shuttle line that will go out to some of the more remote ones, and then if you're going even further out of the town, just south of the Grand Canyon, about 12 minutes away, is the town of Tusayan, and there's a purple shuttle that will even go down there. You are welcome to drive your car into the park, but there are shuttle systems to help you out if you're not staying right in that central village. There's the town of Williams, which is 60 minutes away, and that's where the Grand Canyon Railroad will take visitors. And there's also the town of Flagstaff, Arizona, which is a more populated, more places to eat, more places to stay, which is 80 minutes away. So just basic layout. Also, on the Grand Canyon South Rim, there's also the east side of it, like the desert view, and there are some places to stay that end of the park. It's about 20 minutes away from the village. So let's get started by talking about some of the famous places to stay. And what I want to start off with is Bright Angel Lodge. Many of us have heard of Bright Angel Lodge. It was built in 1935, designed by Mary Coulter. Many cabins. There's 90 little units in this Bright Angel Lodge area that are pretty cute, pretty primitive. They were designed to be moderate priced housing and lodging. They are right along the rim of the Grand Canyon. Now these are primitive. There's no AC in the room. There's no TV in the rooms. And many of them you do have to share a bathroom with somebody else. But these are some pretty cute and classic places to stay. Also at Bright Angel Lodge, you have a lot of options of places to eat. If you're wanting to keep it casual, they have a fountain, they've got a coffee shop, they've also got the Arizona Steakhouse and Fred Harvey Burger. So quite a few places to eat at the Bright Angel Lodge. Oh, and Bright Angel is the cheapest place in the park to stay. Those cabins can go down to $90 up to $150 a night. So one of the more cost-effective places to stay. Next are the Kachina and Thunderbird lodges. Those were built in the 1960s. They have a more contemporary look to them with a few more amenities. You're still not going to have central air in those places. You might get more of a swamp cooler if you're lucky. They have some mini fridges, a hair dryer. Some of them even have TVs. And the nice thing about both of these is that you can get a canyon view room where, you know, when you're booking your room, you're going to want to make sure you get a canyon view room because these rooms literally look right down into the Grand Canyon. The Kachina's kind of more towards Hermit's Rest, a little bit on the edge of town, but they're both in the village. And they have no restaurants at them, but it's not that big of a deal because there are plenty of restaurants near them. Next is the very famous El Tovar Hotel. This was built in 1905, designed by Charles Whittlesey. Anyway, with kind of a Swedish Norwegian look to it. This is of course the premier fancy hotel at the Grand Canyon, but it might even be the crown jewel hotel of the national park system. It is very fancy. It's been, people that have stayed there have been Albert Einstein, Oprah Winfrey, Paul McCartney. Lots of people have stayed at this hotel. No 2 rooms are alike at this hotel. They have 78 units. That's home to the very famous El Tovar restaurant. Very delicious food there. People highly seek out dining there. You have to make a dining reservation for lunch or dinner 30 days in advance, and they do give preference to hotel guests. So if that's a dream of yours, you may want to stay there just to have access to that hotel. One other very nice thing about this hotel is that it does have AC. So some of those hot days, it's nice to get out of that heat and get into the air conditioning. And they do have some very special rooms that you would need to make a phone call to have access to, not just get on the website, but you'd have to call them. You can plan on paying between $250 and $350 a night if you stay at this hotel. Now, something I want to tell you about staying in any of the Grand Canyon Village areas is that there is no assigned hotel parking for any of these hotels I just talked about. All these hotels are right in the village, but the hotel in the village is kind of a free-for-all. Well, it's not kind of, it is a free-for-all. So anyone traveling into the village, whether you're a hotel guest or someone coming from far away, it's all the same. And so you may not be able to park your car close to where you're staying. So just something to know as you book that, if that's important to you, because that could be a bit inconvenient. Also, the Grand Canyon South Rim, all these hotels are open year-round, and you can make reservations 13 months in advance. And I did call the reservation line because I wanted to be thorough. I wanted to help you guys out. They recommend making your reservation 13 months in advance. That is how quick these places fill up. And that's not saying you can't get a reservation if it's past 13 months, but if you are planning ahead like most pre-cation superstars are, make sure that you start booking that when you can at 13 months. Now, moving on, there is another lodging area in the Grand Canyon area. It's a quarter mile from the main village. It's called Maswik Lodge. And Maswik it's big. It has 280 rooms, and although it's getting a little dated, they are going to be renovating it soon. It's 12 two-story buildings. They have a food court, they have a pizza pub, they have a pet kennel right near there, and a general store. So there's quite a bit going on at the Maswik, and a quarter mile from the village is nothing. It is so close. The next special tip I want you to know, and I want you to listen close, is when you start Googling lodging at the Grand Canyon, it can be a bit confusing because all national parks partner with concessionaires to run things like their restaurants and hotels. And when I first Googled the national park, Grand Canyon, I actually pulled up the concessionaire Xanterra's website, and Xanterra runs all those hotels I just went through. But there's actually a fifth hotel that is right in the south rim of the Grand Canyon that is run by a different concessionaire. And so when you're searching for places to stay at any national park, make sure that the URL says NPS in it so that you know it's the national parks, because they're going to give you all of the places to stay in their park. Plus, they'll give you some ideas of just places right outside the park, where if you go directly to the concessionaire site, they're not going to list all of them because they want you to book hotels through them. So the fifth place to stay is Yavapai Lodge. Yavapai Lodge is the biggest lodge in the park. They have 380 units. They are huge. Their rooms generally are a little cheaper. They are around $200 year round. They have a tavern and a restaurant, and they are pet friendly. They will allow you to have a pet in their hotel, which is the only one within the park that will let you do that unless it's a service animal. They have an electric car charging station. They have a tavern and a restaurant. So a lot of amenities at the Yavapai Lodge, and you don't need to have your reservation as quickly for them as you do to stay right in the national park. They recommend about 4 months in advance. You can book up to a year in advance, but they said that normally if you can book 4 months in advance or even a couple weeks in advance, they'll usually have a room, just depending on the year. Here's the big tip number 3 that will just apply to everyone, and good to know. At the south rim of the Grand Canyon, they partner with the Forest Service, and they have basically made a ban on microwaves in any hotel room. So whether you're staying in a Xanterra, whether you're staying at Yavapai, there's not going to be a microwave in your room. Here's the other thing that just killed me. None of the rooms accommodate a 6-person family. So if your group is 6 people, there is one cabin at Bright Angel Lodge that will accommodate you. But besides that, you'd have to get 2 rooms. So that definitely makes traveling to the South Rim a bit tricky if you have a large family. But don't worry if you do, because I have some other options for you, and that is the town of Tusayan. Tusayan is a 12-minute drive from the Grand Canyon, so it's not a crippling drive. It is not bad at all. They have the IMAX theater there, and they have a lot of nice hotels there. They've got a Best Western, they've got the Grand Hotel, the Grand Canyon Plaza, a Holiday Inn, lots of restaurants there. So you have some good choices if you go down to Tusayan. Plus, these hotels will have microwaves and a family favorite, pools. There are pools at these hotels. So if you are traveling with younger children, that might be a good option for your family, just because sometimes kids want to do more than stare into the canyon. And we do have a whole other video on things to do besides stare in the canyon, so check that out if you're wanting to do more than just check out that beautiful Grand Canyon. If you want some more details and a price list all in front of you, I typed this all up on a blog post. It's on our website, We're in the Rockies. We also have an itinerary for this trip and an audio guide that we sell. I recommend checking that out. It will save you tons of time, give you a great trip. Go to the website, we'reintherockies.com. Now, it is time for the best bets, where you should stay. So, my first recommendation is if you are looking for a budget place to stay, I recommend going to Bright Angel Lodge. Those cabins can be pretty cheap, $90 a night if you're there in the off season. If you want to splurge and have a really upscale experience, go to El Tovar. If you are a last minute traveler or bringing your pet along, I recommend Yavapai. That looks like lots of fun. When we would drive by there, we'd see people out there eating. They had outdoor dining and it looked fun. And then if you're traveling with a family and want a pool, I'd say go to Tusayan. Now there are 2 other places to stay, like we mentioned. There's Williams, which is a darling town. So cute, on the historic Route 66, and those were the cheapest rooms around. I saw rooms in the $30 range in the off season, but generally you're gonna pay between $50 and $70. However, if you want to take that Grand Canyon train into the Grand Canyon, those tickets are about $70 for an adult and up. So it kind of offsets the savings you have on that hotel. Plus, if you take the train into the Grand Canyon, you're gonna miss the sunrises and sunsets because they aren't operating during that time. And then if you wanted to stay in Flagstaff and make the drive, that's cool too. But those are my top picks. Now, let's get into camping, because if you really want to connect with a national park, you want to camp. Camping's good. The national park owns a couple campgrounds. There's also a Forest Service campground, and there's privately owned campgrounds. And then lastly, you can boondock, which is free camping on primitive land. I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not going to get into the boondocking, but I can tell you about the other 3. Let's start with the national park campgrounds. There's 2 of them. There's Mather Campground and there's Desert Point Campground. All of these campsites run for $18 a night, which is an incredible steal. You can book them up to 6 months in advance, and you should, because they fill up fast. They offer fire pits, tables, flushing toilets, water spigots, and they're just beautiful areas. Mather has these pinyon pines, ponderosa pines. They're big sites. They can fit a couple cars in them. Generally RVs, they can only accommodate up to a 30-foot long RV. You know, you park your car next to it and then you can park your trailer. But, you know, these national parks, they're just not built for these giant RVs. So just know that if you have a big RV, you're going to want to go to a private campground. But if yours is, you know, smaller size, it'll fit there. At Mather Point, that's the really big one, and it's super close to the village. That's another 5-minute drive. Super, super close. 327 units. They also have a laundry and they have showers, which is a big plus. Desert Point is 20 miles to the east, and they only have 50 sites. Desert Point is not open year-round like Mather. It's more of a seasonal May through October type thing. And yeah, no showers, no laundry. A little bit more primitive over there. If you're bringing your big RV, or if hookups are super important to you, then you're gonna wanna stay at the Trailer Village RV. Now this place does fill up fairly quickly. They recommend making your reservations a year in advance, but they'll probably have some availability if you call a little later, because there's always cancellations. But they do have the water, electric, full hookups. It's paved. When I read the reviews online, people said that the hookups work just fine. They don't really recommend using the other amenities, but that is an option, and that's going to run you between $60 and $80 a night. But you know, having those hookups is pretty nice too if you have an RV. Lastly, if you're not able to secure one in the national park, there is another one in the Forest Service, which is called the X Campground. It's about 2 miles south of Tusayan, so you're going to be driving 15 to 20 minutes to get to the Grand Canyon. Still not a giant drive, but their campsites are $10 a night. It's a bit more primitive. They have vault toilets and just water spigots, but that's an option for you. The Grand Canyon also has the North Rim in the national park system, and we have a whole other video covering that. The North Rim is way less visited. 10% of people that visit the Grand Canyon go there. And we have a whole other video talking about the lodging, the camping, and pretty much anything else you'd want to know about going to the North Rim. So check that video out too. If you are planning a trip to the Grand Canyon, and I really hope you are, we've made this big video that talks about all aspects of planning your trip. It's close to an hour long, but it will take all the guesswork out of planning for the South Rim. And I tell you where we chose to stay on our trip. But I appreciate you watching. This is Cheryl from We're in the Rockies. I hope you have a great trip in the future, and take care.